You are now listening to the A Dose of Disruption podcast, powered by Experian. Weekly compelling conversations on making money moves and growing your network. The place where you can learn to be you and do you all at the same time. I'm your host, Shelly Bell, and now, let's see what this week's Level Up looks like. All right, here we go. Welcome back, y'all. Okay, so now it's time for the Shelly Brief. That's right, Shelly Brief. Shelly Brief. So this week, I want to talk about Clubhouse. All right, now you may have heard me talk about Clubhouse before. I've mentioned how it's an app where it's basically like the old school chat room where you hop on, you listen to, you seeing all these people talk. That's on stage, off stage. You can bring people up, you can moderate, all types of things. But it is taken off, and a lot of black people are talking about how black people have made it hot. Now, made it hot, like they have made it popular. And that's true. Once they brought on a lot of the black influencers and like different black celebrities, a lot of people started getting on the app. It's invite only. It was iPhone only, iOS only at first, and that made it super exclusive. But saying all that to say, they have just received $1 billion valuation. All right, what's valuation? So people talk about if you have been listening to Shark Tank or watching Shark Tank or been to pitch competitions or any of that, you've heard this the V word, valuation. What does it mean? Well, based off of the behaviors of customers participating or potential customers participating in your app and your app's business model, there's a prediction made of how much your company is valued at, right? And there's a lot of different factors. That could be like your year-over-year growth, if you had any. It could be like your the amount of revenue, that kind of thing. But here's the thing to note about valuation. It's made up. Okay, like it's actually not as scientific as it sounds. I know when you listen to Shark Tank and they go, okay, so you asking for for 500,000? That means you think this is valued at $1 million. Like, it's a made up number. And it is based off of trying to predict. So the thing about in the investment world, and I said this to Steve Case and a couple other investors that I know, is like, listen, we keep talking about the investment world like it's blackjack, when it's really roulette. And what I mean by that is in blackjack, you have a little bit more defined terms and defined rules, and you're playing against the dealer. And so you can make some predictions based off of the dealer's play, the people beside you, that kind of thing. And the person beside you can kind of make everybody, could actually be good or bad for the table. Right. And that's the way we have been treating venture capital and the way we talk about it. And it's total BS, in my opinion. Really, we're all standing at a roulette table and we're just hoping that the ball lands somewhere. And then valuation would be us predicting that we think it might, based off of, how fast the little thing was spinning and how fast the velocity of how we threw the ball, which is all BS, right? But I will say, it seems deserved because there's a lot of activity on the app. They now have, I think, over 1 million users for sure. When I joined, I think they were at 40,000 users. Now there's over 1 million, and it's gaining every day. The app is actually, in my opinion, building faster than they can keep up with it because it's starting to glitch. So now, like, things will shut down. You'll get stuck in a room and can't move to another room. Like, it's starting to glitch. So all eyes are on what Clubhouse is going to do next. And I honestly don't think these dudes have it figured out. I think they're tripping and falling upon this thing as they go. They had a good idea and they may have maxed out where they know to go next. Sometimes I think we give people a lot of credit for building something great. But then you look at some of the behaviors that they have and you're like, do you really know what you're doing? Maybe you don't. But that's no shade to them because they have come up with a really great thing that they're building. And I do think some people think that Clubhouse is going to die out. I actually don't. I think it's going to stay around for a while, especially this entire year. What will happen, though, is that the founders are going to have to iterate in a way that causes them to anchor themselves, and they're going to have to do it soon. They're going to have to literally do it within this next 6 months, find something that hooks the market so that people won't, when outside starts opening back up, kind of just move to another place. But speaking of apps and people hooking on and transacting, Today we are talking to Lisha Bell. She is at PayPal and she works specifically on Venmo as her project. She also has worked behind the scenes at places like Wells Fargo. She launched Bill Pay internally at the bank. She also has launched one of the first Apple wallets. She is an engineer. She is an angel investor, and she's going to be talking to us about equity as a whole. Equity from internally, equity in terms of investing, and equity in society. So here we go. All right, let's jump into it. I'm so excited to have my guest today, Lisha Bell. We share a last name, so somewhere in there we probably related. But she is at PayPal right now, but she's doing so many big things. So, it's interesting, like when introducing people, I don't like to just minimize them to where they work, right? Like you're an amazing entrepreneur. You have this new venture that we're going to talk about, the syndicate. We're going to get into all those things. But first, our first question is always, you could be doing anything in the world. All right. Anything. You could be, I don't know, standing under waterfalls in Bali. You could be, herding cows in middle America somewhere. You could be, you could be just collecting fish, any of those things. But you are working at PayPal with a special focus on Venmo. You are launching or have launched BLX, which is a syndicate with Black angel investors. You are a pipeline angel. You are speaking out and standing up and for just like what it means for Black founders to get funded. Why these things?
I mean, why not? I mean, we deserve to have a stake at the table. We deserve our equity. We deserve our reparations. We deserve our worth. All the things that Black people have contributed to this economy, to our creativity, to our culture. We deserve our fair share. And that's why I advocate, because one, it's ours, and we haven't been able to access what we've earned. And that's why it's important to speak up, speak out, represent, and challenge the status quo.
Yeah, 100%. What did you want to be when you grow up? Like, did you want to be an engineer? Was that your focus, your goal? What did you
Okay.
want to be?
I wanted to be a Laker girl. So,
Nice.
yeah, I was reared in the Dream Team Lakers, with Magic and AC Green. And I grew up going to Laker games. And I just wanted to dance and be a Laker girl. And when I grew up and found out how little money they made, I was like, oh no, I can't do that. But that was my first dream,
Where are you from?
LA.
Okay. Oh, so okay, got you. Now that makes sense. So you want to be a Laker girl. I think, it's interesting because there's something about the excitement of that. Did you go into dance? Like, did you at all or?
So I ended up dancing. I was formerly part of the Trojan Dance Force at SC, which was started by a Laker girl. I started my own dance team called Fly Girls after the famous In Living Color group. So I did dance, and I still love to dance. But I learned like the place that women have in society and their worth by how much Laker girls get paid per game compared to how much NBA players make per game. So that was like, oh, I'm in the wrong profession. I got to go into business because I got to learn how this all works. So that's what I ended up studying. But I
Well,
danced,
did you have any? Well, you had your own dance group. That's awesome. And you saw this woman who started her dance group, who was the Laker girl. Well,
Yeah.
I guess probably because she needed to make some extra money because she wasn't making it on the court, and her passion for dance, of course. But well, my question is like, was entrepreneurship around you, like, and then where was the focus on finance? Where did that kind of come from, or just because
Yeah.
even I mean, like that sounded like a natural thought to you, but now teenagers, young adults are even thinking about money depending on where they are in their journey. What kinds of were your parents entrepreneurs or in finance?
So my dad and his brothers owned series of gasoline stations. We call it the Bell Shell, Bell Shell. And it was pretty successful. And even in times during like the LA Rodney King riots, my uncle stood out with the black owned sign and was a pillar in the community and was definitely a staple in that era. And I grew up working there. I can sell you any cigarette. I can sell you gas. I can sell you lots of condoms, all things kids shouldn't be selling. I was selling because I was a cashier working the booths at the gas station. But there was a deal where essentially my uncle got rich and my dad was broke after he sold it. And so I said, well, geez, something's not right here.
Mm.
How does that happen where, one person gets the profit? And my dad was unemployed for a while. He was a flashlight cop. Think about going from a place of ownership and then kind of that shifting because you have a minority stake. And so that really inspired me to understand power and ownership at a very young age. Because unfortunately, right when I was about to go to college and, finances were tight and you think about how people fall from grace. And, this happens, as I've learned, in many circumstances where people don't understand the business that they're in, their ownership, aren't advocating for themselves, and kind of end up at the bottom.
Mm. Interestingly enough, there is some Bells that owned a gas station in Durham where I'm from.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I'm like that. That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm sure we're all somewhere in there. It's all a thing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I love that. So this idea of equity, it
Yeah.
sounds like, your journey started to inform. So at what point did you decide to become an angel investor? Well, where did you work before PayPal? Like, what was your journey like before then? Were you ever just in finance or just solely running another business after your dance shirt?
So I started in banking. So I was at Wells Fargo for 15 years. I call it my first
Mm.
retirement. And my job has always been around money movement, digital payments. So my first job was launching online bill pay. And that's when, like, people still wanted to pay their bills with a check in the mail and all that good stuff. And that was seen as pretty innovative at that time and evolved to like digital payments and wallets that I do today. But I spent 15 years learning finance there, mortgages, credit, checking. So I worked in credit card business, so I got to learn a lot of the fundamentals while in the technology arm of a bank. And that kind of rooted me a lot.
Nice. So you've seen disruption like firsthand in this corporate environment, and I
Yeah.
wonder, like, what type of things does it take to actually shift behavior in that way? So
Mm.
so going from like writing checks to bill pay, online bill pay was revolutionary. Now it's just like, oh yeah, I mean, who's writing a check? But then, people were like, what? You don't want, how am I gonna keep up with it if I can't physically touch it? So do you have, or do you remember, any experiences or stories like moving through that moment in that time? Because I think a large part of your what you care about and talk about is disruption. And like, but some people who talk about disruption has never actually disrupted anything, or they just know it needs to be.
Right.
And this is a dose of disruption. And so like bill pay was a dose. It was a huge dose of disruption. But what did you see like externally, internally? Like how are people really like having an anxiety around what it meant to go through this change? Like were people fighting it? Were they like, saying,
Yeah, my mom was like, I'm not going to log online to a bank and put my money online and then send it somewhere. Are you crazy? This was ludicrous, right? And you think about how long checks have been around, how long credit cards have been around, over 50 years. So having innovation in the money type is it wasn't that, it didn't happen often. And so, what causes consumers to shift? So essentially, I launched the first Apple Pay wallet in 2012. 2012, you know, and mobile payments really hasn't jumped until COVID last year.
Yep. Yep.
Payments. Like this product has been out for almost 10 years. And it was less than 1%, like, of people actually using that. Like, what? You want me to wave a credit card or put it on my phone and pay with my device? And it was, people wouldn't even do it. And now COVID's like, oh, I'm not touching money. It's so dirty, right? So, like, these behaviors don't change overnight. Like, the technology is sometimes ahead of consumer behavior until there's a need, like COVID, like, oh, I don't want to die touching dollar bills and germs and infestation, even though we've known money's been dirty for a long time, people. That $100 bill has been to a lot of places. But you need like something to happen that makes, oh my God, I absolutely need this product. I can't live without it. This is safer. This is secure. We've been saying it for a long time. But until there was like, oh, now I have a need, right? So now you have the post office failing. People don't trust the mail anymore. You know, this wasn't the case 20 years ago, right? And so now it's like, I got to get things there faster, safer, more secure. And you have to have those things line up, right? And sometimes, you know, entrepreneurship is about good time. It's like, you gonna wait it out? Some people are ahead of their time, right? And it's like, can you survive long enough? Or it crashes because the behavior hasn't adopted to the technology that you're pushing. And like, you need those things to come together.
I love this because I think sometimes people think that the technology comes first, but it's always coupled with some event.
Right.
Like the event or the timing, like you said, or you know, when it makes sense, the number of complaints, a height of a complaint or a height of a scare is like
Right.
the best time or easiest time I'll say to disrupt. Is
Right.
at the height of a scare or the height of a or at the low, right? So at the low, like at the low of, you know, everybody's feeling that they don't have, you can disrupt and cause them to feel like they do have. That is interesting because I feel like sometimes when, like I said, when people talk about disruption, it's kind of in a silo and away from the events, you know.
Right.
And I also feel like what's interesting about disruption, and love to hear your thoughts on this, is that disruption comes, but it doesn't always 100% knock out something else. So like, it's
Right.
almost like disruption, like come, almost like building a highway. So it's like everybody's going down one road, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then you come and build an off ramp. Okay, well, they don't always take up the entire other highway. You just got a new off ramp, right?
Right.
So like when Uber came on the scene, it didn't knock out all the cabs. It gave them competition, right? And
Right.
competition is healthy for business, right?
Right.
And it solved what felt like a problem, especially for underrepresented communities, where it's like I can't get a cab anyway, right? So, or it
Right.
solved, you know, some different issues, some different challenges. So I think it's interesting to think about like how does disruption actually play out? The word is one thing, the conversation is one thing, but how does it actually play out? So in your time at PayPal and working on Venmo specifically, how have you seen it be have the same kind of effect as that bill pay?
Yeah. I mean, let's think about the use case of church and how people pay tithes in church. Cash, check. Do you know in COVID we got an app? Okay, you can link your credit card. I mean, we didn't do this, you know, pre-March. We were not really paying tithes online, you know.
Mm.
Think about this necessity of I have to transact in a different way. I can't go physically give people money. I can't show up. How do I support people that I love? Like there were people in need that you couldn't touch or reach, and you had to find creative ways to get there. So PayPal had tremendous growth since COVID. You know, a great benefactor of people who never had PayPal or Venmo accounts now have them because they need to communicate with people cross generational, right? To the baby, to the grandparents, to the, you know, people are adopting because we still need to connect and we still need to transact, which is one of the most important things we can do in our societies is transact. And we have to have that. And that, you know, it cannot fail. Payment systems can't fail because we have to move money. It's a critical part of our livelihood and our lives. And so that's what makes it urgent and compelling. And I think those kind of technologies to me are the most invigorating because there's a true necessity for it. You know, people's lives depend on a Cash App, a Venmo, a money coming deposit. You know, like people are living off of these payment methods, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
banks. You know, they don't function in the same way. But we have a whole group of people we call underbanked or unbanked or underbanked. That this is all they use, and so we have to make those vehicles be able to flow through the system so that people can transact in ways that are meaningful to them.
Yeah, I love that because it turned these transactions into relationships with true human emotion attached,
Yeah.
right?
Remember,
And it,
we,
yeah,
we
it gave us the ability to communicate. So it's like we communicate through transactions now. So with your Venmo, you can send a message, you can tag who you gave it to, you can, and then you can let other people know that you gave it to them. You can, like, there's all these ways of communicating the transaction, that could be bigger than just the fact that you gave somebody money or needed to pay something. And so like all of this levels of conversation that we're having through sending money. And I
yeah,
think that is, one of the keys to these different platforms. Is like, no, you're not just sending me money. You're like, you're actually handing me money. Like, you know what I mean? Like it is more like it, I would say that these companies took the idea of the relationship at the counter, right?
right.
So consider like you working at at this counter. It's kind of full circle, interestingly enough. Like, like this whole idea of like, this is a over the counter reaction or relationship, but just on a tech platform.
Exactly. Yeah, we call
Yeah.
it social commerce. Like people are social in all ways, you know? So really just capturing the essence of that, you know. I sent a Venmo transaction to my personal trainer. My cousin in LA saw the note and said, "Hey, you know y'all related. He married to our cousin on your auntie's side." And I was like, "What? We're all on Venmo, okay?" I said, "Oh, we family? I didn't know."
What?
He's playing together, so happy to have cousins. I mean, but all that from a Venmo transaction. I got,
Wow.
so it's amazing.
That's funny. That's fun. That is awesome. So you have all this amazing work that you've done professionally, which definitely commends you for, working in these different wallets and financial things, and you're looking at taking that a step further, and like, what does that mean to be the one who is investing in companies?
Yeah.
And you're launching a syndicate called BLX. Could you tell us a little bit about it and where you want to see it grow?
Yeah. Yeah. So um, I became a credit investor about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was really an opportunity for me to reinvest. I've been in tech for a long time and don't know too many people who look like me who do what I do. And so essentially, one way to change representation is to have entrepreneurship and to invest in entrepreneurs who look like me. And so, to mention, I started my journey with Pipeline Angels. I did their boot camp, became their deal flow lead, and essentially became really involved in who's investing and how do we get the capital flowing to the kind of undervalued founders. And with the Summer of Unrest with George Floyd, I served on the PayPal advisory board for our $100 million fund and surveyed over 100 funds led by Black and Brown people, and particularly with a focus on the women-led funds. And, if you're a women-led fund, you get significantly less money. That's the reality. And if you're a minority, you get significantly less money than white male-led funds. And, I saw a real gap of Black and Latinx women speaking for themselves, representing their own voices at these tables. I didn't want other people saying what they're going to do for me. I want to say
Mm-hmm.
myself. So me and my two Latinx founders came up with BLX, which is Black and Latinx. And, we want to be the women representing the women at the table. We want to invest in our own enterprise, our own ecosystems. And, we um, are clear about who we're about, and who we're for. And we didn't want to bury into a women of color spectrum because we want to be clear of who was undervalued, underrepresented. And of course, that includes Indigenous people as well. To one, not only bring more women to these cap tables, women of color to these cap tables, to benefit from the greatness that our entrepreneurs are pushing out into the ecosystem, but also to raise the bar for capital, right? Because the bar is so low for them. There's, that if we don't invest our own money and say they are worth it, they deserve it, no one else will. And that may mean we have to go first. We have to take the risk. We have to carry the weight. But those are the kind of things that we're aiming to do and say, we're going to represent ourselves in this, and things we care about, things that are important to our community and our children.
What, yes, I agree with all that. My wheels are spinning. Who are you looking for? Like, who is the syndicate going to? Well, a little bit of education for our listeners. In angel investment, there's a couple types of investors. Two that you might hear most are angel investor and venture capitalist. An angel investor is typically someone who is investing their own capital. A venture capitalist is investing someone else's capital. And there's some other differences, but that's a main one to note. An accredited investor, the SEC rules have changed a little bit, but you have to make $200,000 a year, or have a net worth of $1 million. Now you can also get training, in order to become an accredited investor. Also through those same rules is what's called Reg CF, which is crowdfunding regulations, where now you can raise up to $5 million in crowdfunded equity, which means that people can invest at small amounts into your company, and they don't have to worry about being an accredited investor. It means you can get non-accredited investing. And then a syndicate is a group of angels, basically. Like a group of angels come together, they put their money together to invest in businesses. What kind of businesses are you looking for through the BLX?
So let me just tell you about the first two deals we did. So we just started last quarter and we've raised almost $100,000. And the first company is Fresh Bellies. Fresh Bellies, a Latinx founder who wants our kids to have organic, chemical-free baby food. So essentially, if you look at baby food, it's full of sugar. And we usually build our children's palate to want that and be addicted to sugar. So kind of, this leads on to lifelong health issues. And she's a founder of Performing. She's in Walmart. She's in Target. And she needs capital. And all of us in BLX are mothers of daughters, young daughters under 4. And we believe in this. We believe that kids should have access to healthy organic food. So, to me, that was easy. And so we're supporting Fresh Bellies along the way. We just closed a deal for Young King, a company by Cora Miller, and she is building out hair care for our Black boys, our multicultural boys. It's not just the Black women who spend all this money on hair and need hair products. We have a whole segment being ignored, and that is our Black boys. And so she is building a company to instill self-esteem in our Black boys, to love their hair too, how it comes out their head, have products that don't smell like their sisters, and, all these other concoctions we have for them. And so to me, that was easy. And so we like those because they are, one, building products that we need and we can appreciate, and creating new markets. And no one cares about Black boys. What products do we have for Black boys that aren't toxic? So that's our little advocacy arm. We are interested in tech. We are interested in Fintech. We're interested in women creating AI and data companies. And, we're really interested in those type of things that are really creating pathways for economies, creating, new ways that we can transact, that we can, build community, create community, make us live more efficiently. So that's kind of things that we're looking at, companies that really matter. that really change people's lives. We're not interested in dating apps, or frivolous pursuits.
Mm.
We may not be as rich, as Tinder CEOs, but we're gonna know that we're doing work that's meaningful.
Awesome. What are some of the traits of these founders? Like, because I think there's a company, there's whether the company is performing, and then there is the founders. Like, and what are some of the traits that you look at in founders where you're like, you know what, that's a founder that I want to get behind. That founder has, the secret sauce. In the music world, I guess would be the it factor. But what are some of the things you look at for founders?
Um, there's like a spirit of resiliency and relentlessness. I mean, to be a founder is a thankless job, it's a hard job. And, a lot of the founders I admire are tenacious about what they do. My homegirl, Tanya Van Court, just raised $3.9 million for Goal Setter. She's been working on this company for a very long, long time, not getting the money she deserved. Right. And so, you get that kind of investment in a Black woman in a fintech company who has all the checklists. She's from Stanford. She's an engineer. She's got all of the checks that the white boys have, but just haven't been getting the love, right? And so when I meet those kind of people, I'm like, oh my blood is just it just boils, because I'm just like, you are so worth it, and you are so deserving, and you are so thoughtful about what you're putting out there and why you're doing it, and that is very inspiring to me, because I know they're vested in that, in what they're putting out there. They took a lot of time to build it out, and that's, they're not just throwing out some crappy stuff, just like here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like, no,
Why
I
do you
care.
think? Why do you think? So people ask me this all the time, and I have my thoughts and my theories. But why do you think Black women or women are not getting funded at the same rate as men?
They don't get it. So my first investment is a company called Minted Cosmetics. They make makeup for women of
Mm-hmm.
color. They make a nude, because pink is not all of our colors, actually. We are many shades. And, they present that to white boys, and white boys like, what? What is this problem? You mean there's no new lipsticks in your color? And what? There's no stockings in your color. They just don't get it because it's not their lived experience. And, and if their wife is not a woman of color, they don't know either. So they can't get advice from them either. And, it's a problem that they don't get or don't understand, and so you have to do a lot of educating to people about who your market is and how your market performs. I mean, if you were talking to these dudes about football, they would get it, because sports is pretty easy for, in their vernacular. And then you pull out something different, like, what? You mean Black women spend thousands of dollars on their hair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Facts. Yeah, Black women who only make $30,000 a year, spend $1,000 on their hair. Facts, right? Like, it's just like, I don't get it. Yeah. And so they have to always explain to them and prove that this makes sense, right? So they're getting lower valuations because they're like, I don't know. It's not in my repertoire. We've never done anything like this. This is not a market that we invest in, and then they look at you and like, you probably don't have access to our network, so you're not going to be able to raise, and you're not going to be able to put out a product, and you're not going to be able to this, because you're so out the ballpark, right? And I don't have that kind of time to wait on you to get it together, because Bobby Joe right here, it's going to take him 6 months to get me what I want, right? So it's also the scaling thing. It does take us longer. We can't build an app in 6 months and get millions and get a Clubhouse $1 billion valuation.
I know that's right. I know that's right. So, what should investors be thinking about in terms of disrupting, not getting comfortable anymore, but just using this moment as a moment to make a new move? What
Yeah.
moves should they be making? What should they think about?
So first off, angel investing is the riskiest type of investment you can do. They say you should put 5% of your allocation. So you're not throwing the whole house away with an angel investment, but you're taking a risk and you're taking a bet. So it is risky. This thing about de-risking, it's a risky thing. It may not happen. You might lose it all. But, who are you investing in? What kind of impact are you making? What kind of stance are you taking by putting your money there, right? And it's like, you got to be proud of where your money's flowing. I mean, if you got some money putting it out there, you're going to have to back it up and say,
Right.
did I spend consciously? Where did my
Yeah.
money go? Is my money being recycled within the community, or is it exiting stage left as soon as I get it? And I think being more conscious about the paper trails and consumerism and how do we allocate what we value in our allocation is just as important to Black people on how we allocate our funds, right? And how we need to be more prudent about who's getting it, because a lot of those people aren't reinvesting back into us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're building somebody else's $1 million, $1 billion enterprise.
Exactly. So, what's the future look like for you? You're here now. You're launching BLX. You're, doing the work that you're doing with PayPal. What does the future look like for you?
Mm. That's a great question. I honestly don't know. I'm a girl who surpassed all her dreams. I've been given a lot more than
Congratulations on that.
I asked for. I have, and I'm very humbled by that. I never thought I would make tech money, have tech equity, have shares, and you know, it's really amazing in that, and I do feel a responsibility to expand the pie. Like I don't want to be the only one here by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I want all my friends to be accredited investors. I want all my people to be able to have financial independence and ownership and access. I essentially have evolved to social economic status that I was not born into.
Mm.
And so I live between these two worlds all the time, between, unbanked family and me being banked, like it's a real thing. And, life would be a lot easier if we all had access to education. Life would be a lot easier for us and our family structures to have more stake and ownership. And so I just think that, I'm just going to continue the work that I'm doing and try to impact as many marginalized women is my specialty, people I love the most, impact them as much as possible. I'm also a single mother. I care deeply about single parents who need a lot of support and may not be getting it. It's really
Right.
hard. And, I have a special place in my heart to elevate, all of us in those spaces.
Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned you've now moved to a socioeconomic status that you didn't grow up with. How do you stay there? Like, and not how do you stay there in terms of a money making standpoint, but have you had any bouts of imposter syndrome at all, or like did you feel those levels where if you were traveling through them, or did you kind of just arrive on the other side and go, oh, okay, I guess I can afford these things now? Because I think that process of financial gain can be weird for people. As I'm coaching women through Black Girl Ventures, sometimes it's like if you get $20, people were just like, oh yeah, no, I can manage $20 and I can, I can eat for a month off of $20 and I'm
Right.
good. But give him $2,000 and all of a sudden it's like, I need to save. I can't move anything. It's like, what? Like, this is the time to invest in something that's going to bring some money back to you, and I mean, $2,000 is low, but I'm just saying, like, the way we treat like our everyday expenses is that we're like, oh, I'm gonna hold on and I'm gonna, to the $2,000, but I'm gonna etch out this $20 and have the greatest return ever for my household. It's like knowing how to be broke, but not knowing how to be more wealthy. And I think the other thing is, I always say, people say, oh, if you're the smartest person in a circle, then you need a new circle. Well, nobody teaches you how to be the dumbest person in a circle. So nobody teaches you that, like, things you need to know when you go to this other realm that you may not have learned in that first realm. So I'm wondering, like, did you feel the layers of you going there when you did? Sometimes people do, sometimes they don't. And then, like, did you see people around you adapting different and have to get a new circle? Or did your whole circle kind of travel to that point? Like, what has your experience been like when it comes to gaining more wealth and gaining this power to invest in other people?
Yeah, I grew up thinking I had it all. I thought that I was black, middle class. I grew up in a house. My parents were still married to this day. Have food on the table. I thought I lived a good life. And then I got to college and say, gee, I'm a little different than these kids. These kids have traveled the world. Their lived experience for their education, their level of education. I went to really poor performing public school and didn't know how much that would set me back till I got to like these people's like, oh, we ain't playing boarding school kids. And, I went
Mm-hmm.
to school with a private school with kids with a lot of money. And I realized, I didn't have that. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Like, my exposure, I'm first generation college student. I didn't do a college tour. Like my friends weren't doing that. I mean, I'm one of three, maybe black people in my high school that went to college. So, me and most of my high school friends, we're not even in the same game,
Mm-hmm.
and then you look at, once I got to college and then, this track, and I tell my friends, I'm like, I'm the hood rat in this crew. Because y'all, second, third generation education, y'all, most of them went on to get advanced degrees and they're doing well. But, you look about this other group of people either left behind or still in the status. And, how do you get out and how do you evolve? And for me, only one in my family has, formal education. And so I carry that weight. I carry the black tax toll. I carry the you think you all that toll. You ain't doing
Mm-hmm.
enough. I'm like, I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot. But, it's
Yeah.
not enough. It's not enough. And I get it because the need is great. But there is always this, like, for me, this strong kind of responsibility to keep serving,
Mm-hmm.
and like, let me keep trying, because, my situation is different. And I think it's only because of education. I can't tell you any other more critical reason. But education works. I mean, that goes back to Sojourner and Harriet Tubman. Education works. That has been the proven thing that catapults marginalized groups. And I'm a big advocate of it. And it's unfortunate we have a country where smart people don't just get to go to college. It's like, well, can you afford it?
Right.
So it's still hard. It's still
Mm-hmm.
hard. But I also had to redo my mindset because money's not bad. It's not bad to ask for money. It's not bad to have money. It's not bad to grow your money. It's not bad to have wealth,
Right.
and have healthy mindsets about it and live in it, that's healthy. We've just been taught to like live in scarcity. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
are you sure you might lose that house? You might lose it. Are you sure you want to buy a house? You might lose it. It's like fear-based, right? I
That's
bought a house.
so true. That is why is it? You sure you want to do that? Because you might not be able to one day. Like
You
what? Why
know,
are we even?
it's quick. And it's like, my parents. I bought my house out here in the Bay Area. And my parents said, "We can't help you with that." I mean, no. You got Jesus to pull you out if you get stuck.
Right.
I, I got it.
I love that because that is so true. It's like, but and that is the challenge with raising money too. It's like when you have been around that kind of mindset, going out and asking for money can be challenging, or asking for enough money, or asking for the amount that you need. Especially because like one of the things that I have been challenged by over the course of building Black Girl Ventures is just knowing how to do a lot with a little. I can do it, like I was saying, I can do a whole lot with a little. Give me a little something, and so going out and raising money, I'm like, no, like we need these things now. But going out and operating life differently at a different level, socioeconomic level, it is a thing that people should talk about more, I think, because I think it helps make the people that are like, don't you? Because you might. It's also true that it's hard for us to think long term. If you think you can walk out your house right now and get killed by the police, then it's hard for you to think about 10 years from now, right? And a lot of times when it comes to making money, it's a long game. When it comes to investing money, it's a long game.
Right. Yeah, and the road doesn't go up and up and up, right? I've lost my job. I got knocked up. I had some unexpected, like things happen. I didn't lose my house. You know what I'm saying? And the beauty of leverage, because I have a few houses, is that when things go wrong, I moved to my little apartment. It was cheaper. I rented out this house. Like it's leverage, right? And it gives you options so that you can be flexible. I'm like, I got a 4-bedroom house. I can move 2 other people up in here and rent these out if I need to cover. I can be resourceful.
Right.
I can hustle. We gonna get this money paid.
Right.
Like I'm not prideful like that. I got credit score good.
Yes.
But I ain't never been hungry. I ain't never been paying food on the streets. It's fine.
How have you leveraged credit on your journey? Has it been important? How have you leveraged it?
Yeah. Access to capital, right? So whether it's buying their house, I bought my first house with my 401k money, right? So I leveraged my own money that I saved up, bought my house, and then when I had another emergency, I took a home equity line of credit from my house. When I needed to do that, I've had access to credit cards if I needed to use that. It's just kind of like leverage, like having healthy leverage, of course, having enough balance on bank that you can pay it back and learn how to use it, using it to buy more assets, is one option of doing that. And just being smart about it because, the other people take a lot of risk. We just had a president that exited, take a lot of risk. He ain't broke, maybe bankrupt, but still eating good, living in the States. You know what I'm saying? Like, risk taking is a part of it. And I think that's something that we have to learn because we're just not from that mindset. But I'm like, I took a lot of risk in real estate, and I've had, I'm a landlord. I had crazy tenants, like all those things have happened. I've had lawsuits. I mean, it's just the things, right? But at the end of the day, the benefits far outweigh the pain.
Yeah.
Long-term gain. So I think we just sometimes get caught up in these small things. I have a day job and I have a decent salary, but my passive income is as much as my salary. And it's like, I don't stay pigeonholed to one thing because I've been laid off. They can say thanks for your service tomorrow, right? And it's like you stay on the defensive about how you can survive and your skill set and your assets. My rental income keeps me going someday. It's like thank God I don't have this. Thank God I made that investment. I can cash this out if I need to over there and that stock over there, because if I need it, I need
Right.
it.
Right. Right.
you know?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this conversation and joining us today. You are a member of the Black Girl Ventures board, and I'm so excited to have you. Whoop, whoop, have you, your expertise, as we build out our own fintech platform.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's just so glad to have your voice at the tables where I might not be or other women might not be. And you are doing very important work. And so like your like energy is super important. So, make sure you rest up because we're gonna need you. But I really just want to honor you and say thank you for all that you do, just in general and all the ways that you're thinking about what you're doing and bringing other people along for the journey and actually inviting other people to the table and then saying, hey, y'all, all right, look, we going to the table, right? Like all of that is so important. So I just appreciate you. Is there anything that you want to leave people with that you're working on that I didn't mention or that's coming up?
I would just say invest in Black women. We deserve it. We need it. Check out BLXVC.com. Check me out on LinkedIn. I post a lot of interesting things. I'm going to be launching a Woman of Color in Capital entity soon that just talks about how we need to fuel the system by fueling women. And that's pretty much my thesis. And, I just want people to consider that when you think about your money, do conscious spending and conscious investing. And that will pay off in more ways than just dividends. So that's it.
Awesome. Well, Lisha Bell, thank you so much for joining us. This is A Dose of Disruption. And I see you with your dose of disruption in the world, disrupting the status quo. I love it. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Disruptors, and congratulations. You have taken another step toward being friggin' amazing. Make sure you visit us at adoseofdisruption.com where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or via RSS feed. Rate and subscribe if you're all the way live. Rate and subscribe if you're all the way live. That's right. Tell a friend, rate and subscribe to keep us all the way live. Come back next week so we can disrupt some more shit.